help her, Mr.
I let you.
Hey, get in here. Dallas is about to start.
Welcome to the Ewing Barbecue Podcast, where we have a special edition tonight. We're doing a DOA roundtable, and all things point to the number 45, as it's the 45th anniversary. And starting us off tonight are some fan sites and collectors here. We have Cattleman's Club, David Goodspeed, and the folks from Our 80s Life. What your story is here. Mary and Sarah and Melanie could not be with us tonight. They are off fighting to overturn Jock's will at the moment. They will be back with our next episode.
All right, David, you go first.
Okay, yeah. So my name's David Goodspeed, and this is my wife, Jenny.
Hi.
Hi, Jenny.
I might have drug her into being a Dallas fan. I don't know. We always argue about the best character, and of course it's JR, but she's a big Miss Ellie fan. So I'm the infamous owner of the Cattleman's Club on Instagram that has all the Dallas memorabilia from all four corners of the world, I guess is the best thing to say. And it's a strong passion of mine, and we've got some videos of Jenny opening up some presents of JR talcum powder and other things that I'll post them on Instagram, because it's actually quite entertaining watching her open up gifts, I guess is the best thing to say. But the collection is fun. It's the usual stuff, but then it's the odd stuff that drew me to it. And I think that's what kind of drew me to the whenever I stumbled across the 45th anniversary reunion, right? I was just poking around on social media one night, and I saw it, and I said, I gotta go. And so I looked at her and I said, can you get off work? She goes, I don't know. And I said, well, it's going to suck if you can't go. So she didn't know I already bought the tickets. And then the next day she's like, okay, you can go ahead and buy the tickets. I was like, oh, the plane tickets have already been bought. The hotel's booked, and the 2 tickets for the meet and greet are bought, and we're going. So
2 tickets to paradise, as Eddie Money would say.
2 tickets to paradise, right? I did the best I could to not get COVID or get a cold, or don't touch me. It's like I was getting out of the military, that MASH episode, whenever he was trying to get out and he didn't want to get hurt or anything like that. So
yeah, that's a great interaction. And it's funny that you mentioned the corona situation, because I heard that some people did come down with the virus from the reunion.
Oh no.
Yeah, I was really worried before that. I was like, I do not want to get sick, because you have one shot at this, and we already, just like David said, you already bought your tickets, you already had scheduled everything, and I was like, and we got there on Saturday, well, actually Friday night, and so we were there for a few days beforehand. I'm like, please don't let us get sick, because obviously we couldn't go if we did, but yeah, I'm sorry to hear that some people got it.
Introduce yourselves and just tell everyone your story about your site and just what you do. And
okay, so I'm Abby.
Ties to Dallas.
So we are Keith and Abby. We started a YouTube channel about 7 years ago called Our 80s Life. So our channel is not just about Dallas, but all things 80s. Pretty broad. But as we were just talking about COVID, like when COVID hit and we were all stuck at home, we decided to start watching Dallas from start to finish, watch the entire thing. And so we did. And
we fell in love with it.
Obviously we fell in love with it. We turned into instant super fans. And then as we were watching it, I was like, oh my gosh, I know these places, because Dallas happens to be my hometown. And so we started recognizing so many places where they filmed the show. I always had thought they just filmed it at South Fork and then the rest was filmed on a soundstage. Oh no, tons of it was filmed all around DFW. So we went and found the places.
Right, because what they would do is fly in, shoot exteriors for the front half of the season, fly back to California, and this is Michael Priest was discussing this a few weeks ago, and then shoot all the interiors. So you needed a continuity expert to remember what clothes people were wearing, what hand was holding the briefcase when they walked inside South Fork, whether the left foot was going first, the right foot. They had to write all this stuff down, and they of course, in the later seasons, they stopped shooting on location, and you might notice maybe a palm tree or
Yeah, a
something in the
mountain.
A
background.
mountain, yeah.
You go, wait
A
a minute.
misplaced mountain.
Wait a minute.
That's not Dallas.
Like in Conundrum, there were several little hilly mountains in the background.
Yes. So it's just the
But,
first half of each season that we focus on, although we've watched them all. But what we do is we go around and find all of these places, all the ones we could, which was almost all of them. There's a few that stumped us. And we make these videos for each season where we go and find all the places in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So the first half of the season, and we make videos. That's what we do.
Yes.
You know, one of the coolest pieces of memorabilia I have is some of the plans that they use to recreate the back porch.
That's
so,
awesome.
like you're talking about, when you watch the show, when there's a backdrop and when they're actually like on the ranch. And
Yes.
I think I picked it up about 4 or 5 years ago. It's just one sheet of the plans of the architectural drawings, so they could recreate it on the sound set, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's I've always seen.
Was this the
South Fork?
Was this the original series or the South Fork when they did the return? Because I was on set and I was actually in South Lamar at the studios, and on the interiors and the exteriors that were recreated on the soundstage too, and they had the plans on the wall too. So do you have the ones from the original series?
Yeah, I'll need to double check.
You're talking about
I'll need to look at that again.
You're talking about the plans from South Fork, the house, or the set?
Yeah, the back porch set that they would have made in California whenever they were doing those scenes.
But you also have the house too.
No, I do not have the house. That is the one thing that I would love to recreate and build one.
I thought you had
but not for the entire house. No, just for the back porch area.
Gotcha.
Now I'm up in Boston. If I recreated South Fork up here, I'd have to call it North Fork.
No, we won't hold that against you, John.
That's like Gary has West Fork on Knott's Landing. But so you hadn't watched the original series before?
Not before
the pandemic.
Not before 2020.
Yes. So our first trip to South Fork.
Wow.
I know, right?
we went out to South Fork to do a tour in 2018 or 19.
It was 2019. Yeah, 2019. We went to South Fork tour for our first tour.
We were in Dallas. We said, hey, we'll just swing out there and see what's going on. Of course, we were the only person in our tour group that had never seen the show. So that was kind of the first thing that kind of.
But we were like, we didn't let on. We played along.
We played along like we knew we were talking
great.
about. Like, nodded a lot, and but that was kind of the first taste of like, hey, we're onto something here. And then when COVID hit, then that's when Abby says, hey, we just need to jump in and see what it's all about. So yeah, we're relatively new to the Dallas game, but have gone in head first for sure.
Okay, and David, did you see it during the original run?
Yeah, I was one of those kids. I was born in '71. I know I look like I was born in like 2001 because I'm so young. But so I grew up on that '80s TV, right? Dukes of Hazzard, Dallas Dynasty, Fantasy Island, all that stuff, right? But I remembered it was right around probably, I was probably 13 when I was old enough to understand, girls and things like that. And those were some of my earliest memories, right? And so, but that's the difficulty of it, right? Is that you could create 16 different personalities to get on Columbia House and try to get the VHS tapes, which I have I have a ton of them in the collection, probably 100 of them, but I don't have a VCR. So anyway, so it was hard to kind of go back and watch like the beginning, because in '78 it would have been 7, and my parents wouldn't let me watch Jock call JR a jackass on the front porch, right?
Exactly.
First scene, right? So
don't be a jackass. God damn it.
Pay her off, Daddy. Don't be a jackass. But it was but I remember then like SoapNet, I believe it was one of the first cable channels I remember kind of like that. And then obviously TNN. And so, and then there was, I don't think it ever got on TV Land. I remember like Charlie's Angels and stuff like that was getting on TV Land when it started. But it was hard to kind of go back and recreate all that. But it was fun to do that, to go back. And I followed it all the way through to the end. as a kid and kept up with it. And that's really when the collecting started, was like in 85. So I
Oh, wow.
used to work used to collect baseball cards, and in college and high school I worked in a baseball card shop. So that was like my introduction to Dallas collecting, was the Donruss trading cards and things like that. And then whenever I just gained,
I think there were like there were 56 cards in the set, and I have multiple copies of certain cards because I remember going in the store and buying every package.
Oh, wow.
And if you go back and look, and you may know this, and if you don't, then haha, gotcha. But the back puzzle pieces are two different puzzles.
Oh, yeah.
So if you lay them all out, you'll notice I think it's a red border and a blue border, I believe. Mm-hmm. And so there are two different puzzles that you can make on the back from the cards.
Okay, because that's interesting.
But did you ever eat the gum, though? So did you eat the gum?
After I got home from Dallas 45, sure, because I didn't want to get sick before then. But yeah,
he ate the old gum, and we do not recommend it.
That was rough.
Oh no, it turns to dust.
It like crumbled in his mouth.
It crumbles to dust.
It tasted like a moldy toothpick for sure.
So obviously we're in the 45th anniversary celebration this year, and as part of that, the Ewing Barbecue Podcast has brought on different cast members. We've staged some reunions with Charlene Tilton and Lee McCluskey, Audrey Landers and Lee McCluskey. I've been talking with Omri Katz about coming on with Josh Harris.
Awesome. That would be great.
Just trying to work on a lot of combinations. And we obviously, the show would not be what it is without the fan base. And that's what obviously brings in these reunions. What is it about the show that draws people in and keeps people? Because all of you went to the event in California and at Oscars last week, and people come from around the world. What is it that makes people just drop what they're doing? The 40th anniversary, the 30th anniversary in 2008, they come from around the world. What is it? What is the draw?
Well, I mean, I think it had it all, right? If you go back and you look at television from the the 80s and what it offered, right? Dynasty had it, Not Sliding had it, but I think Dallas kind of encompassed a little bit of everything, right? It had obviously had the oil, the wealth, the power, the sneaking around, the women, the men, the I think honestly it did really have a lot of modern day America, right? And I think there's a sense that our age group, 40s to 50s and probably 60s, we living through that, it was just so intriguing, right? To me it was more like sure, I enjoyed Fantasy Island, Dukes of Hazzard, Heart to Heart, but it was always kind of like the same thing over and over and over, right? But with Dallas, you just didn't know what was coming and how characters, and what I love is what you were talking about, is trying to get all the, it's all the, what I truly do enjoy is that obviously the main cast is phenomenal. Obviously you can't replace any of them, but what I loved was the supporting cast. The fact that you were talking about bringing the other, the secretaries back, or if you could get the oil cartel, if any of them were still alive, but you get those like McSween. McSween was probably one of my most favorite characters, and he was kind of like Bum in the reboot. Now, our 80s life has not seen the reboot yet, so we're not going to hold that against you, so I'm not going to give away anything. But
okay.
Oh, you haven't gotten there yet, have you?
We started watching it a couple nights ago,
yeah.
So we're just on like episode 3 now. Right?
Yeah.
We've really enjoyed it so far, but it's totally different than the original series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
right.
And it's that supporting cast to me, right? That I thought was so powerful. So that's where like my collecting has gone, is to dig deep into who those people were, find photos of them, or if it's an autograph, or it's something that ties back to it. That I found some pictures recently of Meg Gallagher where she's outside on a pool and she's wearing a different shirt. I think she says, "I love JR." She's wearing a cowboy hat. And I found like 5 or 6 different images of it, and those are some of the most some of those items like that, I think, are some of the coolest things that are there, because the cast was so huge, right?
Yeah.
And how whenever I'm watching
Right.
an episode, even, I've seen the entire series probably at least 10 times, but every time I watch it, I'll Google cast members, and I'm like, well, who was the waitress that, I think, what was her name? Doreen. It's like, well, who was that? And so you try to figure. Dorme. Yeah,
Dorme?
that's right. Excuse me, Dorme. But then,
Pat
then you start
Colbert.
digging
Pat
into who she
Colbert,
was
yes.
and what she did and everything else. And I think that was what was so much fun about it, is that, you could see some of these people on, Fantasy Island, Love Boat, all that type stuff. But that's the fun stuff. And then the last thing I'll say, and then I'll hush for a second, is the reboot. I thought they did a pretty good job with it. I thought they were about 3 years too late, obviously, in trying to get it back together, with Larry and everything else. But the way they brought Larry back, I thought was absolutely brilliant. There was probably only so much he could, do physically. Bringing back, Ken. I thought it was a lot of fun. I was disappointed that, like I said, that they just didn't. It would not have been another 14 season series, right? But they probably could have drug another two seasons out of it, I think, and it had a good 4 or 5 season run. So it was fun. I loved it.
And they changed the head of the network, who wasn't a Dallas fan, and if the other head had been there, they probably would have gotten a 4th season to see where it had gone, and who knows. But completely agree with you about the supporting cast. I always called them the familiarity, the comfort, the glue, the fabric that weaves around all the main people that kind of hold, because they'd turn up and you would be like, oh yeah, there's Dorme, there's Cassie, there's and sadly Sly, and sadly we've lost Meg Gallagher, Jenna Michaels, and Sherilyn Ratino.
Oh, I had a crush on her. Oh my gosh. Well, who didn't I have a crush on Dallas, right? But holy cow, right. Jackie. Oh, yeah. So now you know why I started watching it as a 13-year-old boy, right?
Uh-oh.
Right. Well, for me, it was when Priscilla Presley first showed up on the screen. I was like, oh my God, who is that woman? I was like, it reminded me of when I watched Three's Company and there was Priscilla Barnes, and I said, whoa.
Yeah.
If I had to go to a hospital, I want a nurse like Terry. Now, it was interesting that Sasha Mitchell, who came on the later seasons, had this distinction of playing Patrick Duffy's nephew on 2 different shows.
Yeah, he was on Step by Step.
Step by Step, right?
Step by Step as his nephew.
I was thinking he was his
and
son,
on Dallas
but
as his
the
nephew.
I couldn't remember. It's been a long time since I've watched that, but I remember liking it.
And another interesting thing were the cameos that were of different people. That Marla Maples turns up in an episode. You had Alan Ratchins from LA Law as a doctor. You never saw his face. You had Dennis Haysbert, who played David Palmer on 24 as Bobby's doctor after Bobby was shot.
Oh, wow.
You had Lou Diamond Phillips chugging booze with Sue Ellen in the street.
Definitely recognized him right off the bat in that one scene. Yes.
You had Peter Horton from 30-something as Lucy's dealer in the early episodes after she broke up with Kit Mainwaring.
Like Greg Evigan.
You had all these people, and you go back. Greg Evigan.
I know The Runaway, a lot of people don't like it, but it's one of our favorite episodes. Not going to lie, we love that one.
You have Brian Dennehy in episode 4 of the series.
That one is ridiculous, though. I got to say, the whole hurricane in Dallas thing threw us way off.
And a lot of those early episodes, we were always joking that, it's like auditioning Bobby Ewing for his own spin-off show. Bobby Ewing detective, Bobby Ewing psychiatrist, Bobby Ewing this, Bobby Ewing that. So the event last week, before we get to the event, tell us about you going to sites and places and just filming locations and how fans can get that information. You would obviously be the people to go to for different things, like Sarah's obsessed with the hot biscuit.
Oh, I'm so sorry to let you know the hot biscuit is not there anymore. We looked. In fact, when we met Joan Van Ark last week at the event, I told her about our project, and I told her, I'm sorry to tell you that the hot biscuit is no longer. But, and then I'm not sure she even remembered filming there, to be honest with you. She was like, oh, okay, why is this lady telling me this? But yeah, the reason this started is because Dallas is my hometown. And as we were watching it as adults, because we were too young to watch it back in the day when it first started, I was like, I just kept recognizing all these places. I'm like, oh, well, that's just right down the street from where I grew up, or the two gold towers, the Campbell Center, where Cliff's office was and all that. That's where my prom was for high school. So I know these places.
What?
Yeah. I had prom there.
And I know there's a Taco Bueno near there because I saw it from the highway.
I'm sure there is. I mean, I probably went to that Taco Bueno. So I kept seeing all these places and like, okay, babe, I know these places. Like, wouldn't it be a fun project to try and find them all? And that's literally what we did. We just, as we were watching it, we would start writing notes and looking at Google Maps and all that and just figuring out where all this stuff was. And then we just made YouTube videos for each season.
Yeah, it almost turned into a game. I mean, it's like a challenge. Mm-hmm. It's like solving a puzzle. I mean, like, because some of them are really easy, like she mentioned. I mean, some of the, the
Thanksgiving Square.
Campbell Center is easy.
Some things are very obvious, but some, I mean, like Bobby's Grave, I mean, stumped us for multiple years. We just found that one, a few weeks ago. So, there's still some we're looking for. And, we were looking for Cliff's house, but then we figured out today that Abby had written a note that it's actually out in
California.
It's in California, unfortunately. So
dang it.
Very disappointed because I was hoping to find Cliff's house in Dallas. But
well, we found his first. Oh, Cliff has like 3 different places in the series. The first one we did find, and then he moves to that apartment that they always show the same exterior every time
with the little water feature around it.
You'd recognize it immediately. Yeah. But that's why we were so thrown off, because we were like, where is this? We were driving all around looking where we thought it would be, never found it. Now we found out it's actually in California.
That's like Afton's nightclub where she was performing. It was always the same cars driving by in front.
And they used it for years, that same shot of the cars.
That's the same place where Lucy met Mitch.
Where Lucy met Mitch. Yeah. That's right. So we found that place, but unfortunately it is gone. It's torn down. So it's just leveled. There's nothing there. It's just gone. Parking lot. It's just all just a parking lot.
And Linda talks about how the city has, and she mentioned this. You posted a video from Oscars that you cut together very nicely, and she talks about how the city has grown up over the years, and she always talks about how it's changed from when they stayed in the cheap dank hotel when they first got there, and
the Royal Coach.
Should I call it a no-tell motel?
Well, it was called the Royal Coach, but they called it the Royal Roach.
The Royal Roach.
That's a Chick-fil-A now. It's totally gone. We looked for that too.
And David, you're based where? Down in Texas?
At Norman, Oklahoma, which is probably about 3 hours from South Fork. My 50th birthday was Jenny got us the Stay Like a Ewing package at South Fork, where you spend the night and all that type stuff. One of the best stories we have from it. We were just 2 peas in a pod. Well, I really was, I guess, more than anything else. But have you ever done it?
No, we haven't had the chance to yet because we're trying to arrange it. And
so it was pretty cool because the whole event was pretty wild. So we went in August, and they asked my wife, they said, you want to do the trail ride? And she's absolutely, for what I'm paying, I'm going to make him get on a horse in the middle of summer in Texas. And so did the trail ride. We did kind of got a tour of the house, but we'd already been through the house a few times and everything. Then they had dinner for us, and we sat at the big long table, where when you're on the tour and all that. Yeah, right off the kitchen. Yeah. And so we met one of the guys who'd been working there since '84, and then his son got a job there. So we were just kind of talking about, what it was like. He said, yeah, I've been here since '84. So all the filming. So, getting those, as we were talking about like supporting cast, you hear from people who were actually, there, trying to convince people, jumping the fence. No, they don't live here. We've all heard those stories and everything. Right. And so this old guy came up. We ate this steak dinner, which was really good dinner. And then this old guy came up and he said, yeah, right. He said, hey, my name's, whatever, Bill. I can't remember. He said, I got a firearm and I'll be in this house right across the way. And we're like, okay. He goes, so if you have any problems or anything like that, just give me a call on my cell phone. And I said, okay, no problem. Well, then the employee came out and he said, okay. He said, well, we've cleaned up everything and left you some snacks and some drinks and stuff like that in the kitchen. He said, so you all have a good night and we'll see you in the morning. You have the house to yourself. And I was like, you left. And I'm not a very responsible adult. You can tell from my collecting habits with money. Oh, no. And I was like, so he left us, right? So it's just the two of us in the house by ourselves.
Now, you didn't break the plexiglass in the JR's death room.
No, we didn't.
No, we
didn't do that.
Dallas,
we didn't do that. But
okay.
But it was hilarious because we went swimming. We tried to recreate shooting me, which was absolutely ridiculous. With swimming in the pool, we were having some fun and everything. And so then we went inside, and they left. I think it was like the first 2 seasons on DVD, which so it's like, okay, well you've got to watch.
Well, you don't want to watch the miniseries because that was at
it was at Cloy's Box.
Cloy's
right,
Box Ranch
right.
down there.
Yeah,
so
we I can't remember what episode we were watching. I think we were just watching The House Divided, I think, right? And so anyway, we're sitting there. The whole point of this whole story is this. It was an amazing event in time. But we're sitting there and I look over at my wife and she's on the couch and I'm on the couch. We're watching it. We're just giggling about all this. And all of a sudden I see these little like dust particles. Now I've seen enough Ghost Adventures to know what an orb is, right? And so I'm like, I was like, is there a ghost in here? And so we were just cackling and so I started recording it and I saw these little dust things going across, or little orbs. And I thought, okay. I was like, all right, Jim Davis, if you're in here, we're just having some fun with it and all that stuff. So we, stay up till most of the night, sleep in JR and Sloan.
Don't be a jackass, he said.
Right. At one point, about 2:00 in the morning, Jenny sends me a text. She says, where are you? I said, I'm out in the field. Because I just took off. I just was like, well, if I got access to the whole ranch, I'm going all in, right? So we sleep in the room where they say it's JR and Sue Ellen's bedroom. So we sleep in there, of course. And so the next morning, we get ready. We go downstairs, and the guy's there, a different guy that had been there since 1980, I believe it was, he said. And he was cooking us breakfast, which was phenomenal. We ate on the back porch and all that stuff. And so we went back into the living room and we were sitting there and I said, wasn't that a blast? And I slapped the couch and probably 37 years of dust bunnies came out. So what I thought were ghosts was just dander and dust and things like that, which was pretty funny. So we had a blast with it though. We thought we were hanging out with the ghosts of Dallas and thought that it was just it was a great time though. But then we left around 10:00 in the morning or so. But I think that's how you have to do it. I think what you're doing in November is the way to do it, right? Is that you either get a group of people, you're going to do the podcast, invite people down, kind of do it together because we tried to get other people to go with us, but nobody else would help split the cost or anything like that. They were like, oh, that's crazy. It's too expensive. So it was just a couple.
But if you split the cost, it breaks it down per person to a lesser.
Much more affordable than two Okies from Oklahoma,
Now there used to be the Duncans owned it, and the son used to have a barbecue joint just down the road from the ranch that one of the tour guides took me into while she was showing me around. And another hidden gem that not a lot of people know about now, maybe Abby and Keith know about it, is South Fork Trailer Park.
Oh, yeah. We did a video on there about that place. Yeah,
okay.
We went and checked that out.
And they have a replica. Yeah. The tour guide, we drove through there and J.R. Way, Gary, Valine, John Ross, all the roads are named after the characters. And it was just... it's a lot of interesting things that if people are going to go down, obviously.
Yeah, that's in Wiley. In Wiley?
Yeah, Wiley.
I mean, it's a few miles away. Totally worth going. The house itself, we were told it was a miniature South Fork, but oh my gosh, it's almost the size of actual South Fork, and the pool is probably bigger. It's very nice.
It
We
has to be
liked it.
bigger, yes.
Yeah, we
You
liked
could throw
it.
you could drown many Kristens in that pool.
Oh, yes.
Well, the thing
Did you
that
go
was-
inside the actual
It's just like
house?
an office and workout
Right.
facility and such. So no, we didn't go in there. We could peek through the window
Okay.
though.
Okay. Yeah. So what is the before we just go through the event last week, what is your favorite obscure storyline or episode?
Oh, I know what Keith's is.
Oh yeah,
He has a favorite.
Mine's the dove hunt.
The dove hunt. We love the dove hunt.
Dove Hunt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's one of Jock's last ones.
And that bar fight is classic when Bobby and Jock are just throwing down, and you have JR slumped in the corner,
Takes his watch off.
Worried about
Like
his
he's
watch.
gonna fight, and then he hides.
So that was filmed
And
in.
he was even hiding in War of the Ewings during
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a funny story about that one.
Yeah, so that was filmed in Crum, Texas. So we went out to Crum, and where that bar fight was at is now a hair salon. So it's called, what's the name of it?
It's called, this is my favorite location we've ever found. It's called Lisa Marie's Salon Saloon. So she has taken, it really was a bar. And this sweet lady, Lisa Marie, she's great. She has left the bar and she does something called Wet Wednesdays. If you get your hair cut there on Wednesday, she has free beer and drinks. And it's done up like a saloon, but it's a salon.
But we blew her mind because she did not know about any filming that ever happened in Crum related to Dallas. So when we come in there, with the pictures and the video, and we're showing her place to her and what it used to be, she was just like on cloud nine. She goes, I can't wait to tell all my friends.
Because she was a Dallas fan.
Yeah.
And she had a JR beer can on display and everything. But she had no clue the whole time. She'd owned that salon for at least a few years. And she had no clue that a major scene from this one episode was filmed there. And yeah, she was the cutest thing. If you're ever in Crum, Texas, guys, go to Lisa Marie's Salon Saloon because she was delightful.
But go on Wednesday.
Go on Wednesday.
I mean, I could talk about Sue Ellen and Peter being cringeworthy.
Yes, but we like that one though.
Do you really?
They go to the Pizza Hut.
That was, yeah. I think what I really enjoyed was how, and there were multiple storylines in it, right? But towards the end, whenever Jock was went to South America and how Ewing oil was changing, and how then he passes away, and the reading of the will, and how they carried that through, because obviously Jim Davis was a huge force and factor of the show, and with his untimely passing and everything else, how they handled that. And I think that's where, and we were talking about this at the event there in Palm Springs, is that towards the end of the series, season 10, 11, on whatever, you're just kind of like, this is kind of okay, but those first few seasons, man, were just magical. And that's where I always like it, right? That's I guess I can say the sweet spot of Dallas is that we've all got favorite episodes or things like that, but how they made all those transitions, right? You're going to break up Ewing oil, and Lucy gets, this, and here comes Gary, and how it all tied together. I think that's kind of, I think whenever really, obviously the other people will argue when Dallas really started to go on a skyrocket, but I think that's whenever it kind of crossed that hump to saying we're staying power, right?
And it's funny. It fell from number 1 to number 2 in the ratings that season.
Interesting.
For the whole season, yeah. But it even carried on to, they had that back-to-back episode with Knots Landing, because Gary comes in for the will, and at the beginning of the next Knots Landing, that same night, they showed it on a Friday night to pair them up. That they had, Gary was at South Fork playing with Christopher upstairs, and Bobby comes in, and then Gary goes back to the hotel in Dallas, and Abby is there, and he's pissed off and fuming about the allowance and the interest and this and that and the trust funds and all this. And also in the episode, Valine is doing her Capricorn Crude book tour, and she is at the same hotel doing a book signing. So JR crosses over to there as well. So you really had the Jocks Will carrying into 2 shows.
Yeah.
That it was that big.
I wish they would do, what Knots Landing, they've only released the first 2 seasons, I think, on DVD. Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something like that. It would be fun to find all those again. And I know you can, because I've seen them.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the quality is like, but to go back and watch that again, and how they wove the 2 together. I think, the woves were, because they talked about that at the event, right? That we were at last week. They talked about how it was woven together in spots and parts, and how this and how that. And it was pretty neat to hear that stuff.
There were some blown opportunities, not having Sue Ellen and Abby interact, not having Miss Ellie and Lila May have scenes together, and JR going up against Greg Sumner, maybe something like that. There's some missed opportunities. Yeah. And more of Lucy, maybe Lucy tangling with Paige a little bit.
Yeah. That would have been fun. Yeah.
Did you have favorite guest stars?
Man, you're asking some questions that, it's like, could you have taken the test first in college and then tell me what the questions are before I had to go back in and answer them? Man.
I mean, I'm going to go back to Greg Evigan. I mean, he played such a creep, but that episode I think was so great. That one popped out because we were talking about it earlier, and he had that creeper van. Like, that episode, The Runaway, is just so ridiculous. But I think the more ridiculous episodes are my favorite ones. I loved him in that. I thought he was great.
Yeah, that was a good one. That's a good one. Yeah.
And a little bit of trivia is Andy Bradley was played by Paul Sorensen from the Cartel.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was on an episode of The Brady Bunch. He played Buddy Hinton's father, who was the bully.
That's super random trivia there, Josh.
It is.
Yes. Well, no, I was looking this up last week because we were doing an episode where Lucy has gone back to work at modeling after her divorce.
Yeah, the cola. She's drinking the cola commercial.
Yeah, she's wearing the Zorro vampire outfit and all this stuff.
I listened to your episode. That was funny.
And the client was played by David Hammond, who played in Sound of Music, and he was also on an episode of The Brady Bunch.
Okay.
He played the one that Marcia broke up with for the prom or something like that. So just a lot of obscure people that have come on, and it was great because there's a game you can always play 6 Degrees of Dallas, like 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
There you go.
Like Christina Applegate's mother played a Stephanie Rogers, Leslie Ann Downs character.
Mm-hmm.
Christina Applegate's mother played her secretary.
Oh, weird.
And Jay Ferguson, who's on The Conners now, playing Darlene's husband. His mother played a reoccurring character as a news reporter, Bobby Joe Ferguson.
All right.
So this goes back to David's looking up people. Now you're going to start looking up more people here.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm going to get hung up on somebody and go into a big rabbit hole.
We need to change the name of this episode to Obscure Characters from the Dallas series.
Yeah. The Hollywood show coming up at the end of the month in California. Deb Bernard is going to be there. Yep. Donna Mills,
Barbara
Carrera, George Chakiris, and Barbara Luna, who played Barbara Eaton's sister-in-law in one episode, will be there as well. So anyone out in the California area, and speaking of California, let's just pick through the reunion here before we wind up this segment, or part 1 of the reunion coverage here for the podcast. So you found out the 45th anniversary reunion was taking place out in California, and tell me your stories. You got the tickets. Did you know you were going right away? And what was the trip? How was the trip? What was it like? And
well, I think for us, 2 days before that announcement was made, we just had a conversation that we weren't going to travel anymore for a while. Our daughter just got married, so we were kind of recovering from that. And then she comes to me and she goes, "Keith, they're having a 45th anniversary, but it's in Palm Springs,
and we're going. We got to go."
And it's on a Tuesday night. And it's because, but we're going.
We got to go.
So
we have to go.
I really didn't have much of a choice, happy wife, happy life. And it would have been tough around our household if I would have said no.
Nah, but I mean, the thing is, like we were telling you, we're relatively new fans. And I feel like we hadn't had any opportunity to meet these people. And here they're all going to be in one place at one time. Like, we've got to go. We had to do it.
Yep.
So it was a no-brainer for us.
And David, you obviously told me your story about the tickets and
what we did it different. Keith and Nabby, they took advantage of, I guess, being in Palm Springs and the series, being around there. I'm the usual kind of person that will like go to a concert, fly to a concert, and then just go back and sleep in the airport and then go back home. So it's like sometimes I'm just an in and out kind of person, right? So we flew in Tuesday afternoon, got there around 3:30. Yeah. And changed our clothes, brushed our teeth because you never know who you're going to meet, right? And
get all that green stuff out of the teeth.
Yeah, exactly right. And caught an Uber down there, and then we walked up on the. You're not familiar with it, right? Because Keith and Abby had been there, so they knew where they were going, what they were in for, what they were. We just walked up, and then they popped out of a line. And they're like, "Are you David?" And I was like, "I don't know anybody, Money. I don't know anybody in Palm Springs. Who are you?" But I knew who they were, which was great. Right. So we chatted for a few minutes and kind of got the lay of the land and what was going on. And then we went and got in line. And kind of this isn't a knock on anything that Oscars did because, well, you'll understand why I'm going to say this, right? Is that the line was huge, right? I think they probably had 300 people. Maybe 200-300 people, I guess, whatever the case might be. But like you were talking about, the love for the show and the demand for the show and the passion for the show, we there were just so many people, right? It was, I don't want to say it was
how crowded would you say it was? How many?
Oh,
I mean, ballpark? It was a very big place, and it was totally packed.
I bet there were 300 people in there.
Probably 300 would be our guess. Yeah.
So it was in the outdoor part of the venue, and that section is not very big because they're doing some construction on one part of it. So, which was, I think it was supposed to be completed by the time they did the reunion, but that didn't happen. But there were a lot of people in pretty tight space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so you got in, and there were, just like I said, just a ton of fans, and
some came in from around the world, apparently, right?
Yeah.
So people from Germany and France.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, we met someone from France.
How many different countries did Steve say people were from that he talked to?
10.
Oh,
I think he said 10.
I don't know. He's several different countries.
Yeah. So he kind of mixed it up between states and countries, but
it was pretty cool. I mean, the stage was nice. The backdrop set and everything. I've been talking to the gentleman who created it. We've been trading emails because I'm trying to figure out how to.
James Yarnell, according to Charlene Tilton, who was an Emmy Award winner. So, and can you just describe the set for everybody?
Yeah, it was really cool. So I reached out to him because after. Well, I'll put it this way. So so they had the event, which was great. Like Keith mentioned, the seating was kind of hard for some people, I think, to see unless you were Keith and Abby and somehow you found yourself on the first row. I don't know how they did that, but I tried to, sweet talk the maitre d' or pay him off or whatever. But it got me in first class to Southwest, which was an exit row. But no, it was really neat. I mean, it was neat. They came out. I was a little, I don't know. I guess the best thing to say is, whenever you had, Sherry and Kathy on the sidelines and, that kind of stuff was a little different.
How did that?
That was weird.
That was it seems a little odd. And Michael Priest down in the
what I heard, too. And I can't remember who I heard.
And he's an 86-year-old man that is quite the storyteller.
Yeah. But I heard there was some budgetary and contractual issues, and I was like, okay, I don't get it, but So is Hollywood. But it was neat. But then, like, on Keith and Abby's YouTube video, I think it was this week you guys were talking about it. Was it this week? Yeah. About how, we after the event, we were sitting around. Well, somebody walked up to me. They said, "Are you here for the meet and greet?" And I was like, "Yeah, I didn't buy, I just didn't find this band on the floor. I'm here to get it on." Right. And he said, "Okay." He said,
Let's get it on.
Let's get it on. He said, "Well, wait right here. Don't move." And I was like, "Okay." So I just sat there. Okay. Well, then Keith and Abby came over and we started chatting and talking. And then we looked over our shoulder, and where the bar area was, where you went in to go to get drinks and some of the food and all that stuff, everybody was just kind of clumped up there, right? And we were like, well, what is this? What's going on? Where are we supposed to go? And probably 30 minutes passed, somewhere around there.
Yes, we sat there for a good while.
Yeah, and so we finally just kind of, you would think we're from Missouri because you got to show us everything. And we, so we got in line, right? So we got in this line, and and I know exactly how Keith and Abby felt, because we got in line and they said, "Okay, you guys are next." And we walked into this room, and no Linda or no Patrick. And I'm not, I'm not going to lie, I was deflated. I was nothing against, Steve and Joan and Kathy and Sherry and Charlene. Thankfully they were there. They were troopers, right? But there was no Linda and Patrick. And I just was like, you know what? I've been to Mexico when I was in college. I can deal with anything. I just took a deep breath and said, okay, so made the best of it, right? Made the best of it. Got to, Steve and I have just had a handful of interactions on Instagram about the collection and mentioned some things to it. And then I said something to Charlene, and she kind of jumped back. She's like, "Oh my God, that's you." And I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "You've got stuff that I've never seen," which was cool. That, obviously, her connection is tighter than anything, and to have that kind of stuff. And then Kathy, I said, "Hey, Kathy, I'm the Cattleman's Club on Instagram." She's like, "Oh my God." She said, "I had some stuff that I stumbled across, and I was thinking about reaching out to you and going to give it to you, but I assumed you had it, so I just gave it to another friend." And I just started laughing. And I was like, "That's cool," And so, so for me, I made the best of it. Got to, I think that's what's so important about what I'm doing with Dallas now, right? Is that I love your knowledge of Dallas is phenomenal. I don't think I could read it, and it would not be better than hearing you recite it, right? And so where my passion lies in the show is the memorabilia, how much marketing was done around it and all that other type of stuff, because of, my collecting history of other things and stuff like that. So it was just neat that my passion, I got to talk to, Steve and Charlene and Kathy especially, and then Sherry Wilson. And we talked about they're going to be filming a movie. What's it? It's about Elvis here in Oklahoma. They're trying to get funding for it.
Sofia Coppola's
movie,
right?
Oh,
yes,
wow, that's awesome.
It's in a little town called Purcell, about 10 minutes south of here. And so I mentioned something about it, and she's like, "Oh my God, you know about that?" And I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "If we can get funding." And I was like, "Yeah, so I know." So it was just fun to, and I say this like this, is that, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, trying to connect with these, people. They're just normal people too, right? Was nearly impossible. But the fact that and whatever happened with Patrick and Linda, whether it was just too many people, because there was not a lot of control of, like, I think if they'd said, "Come in, get your sign, get an item signed if that's what you wanted, get your picture, say hi, thank you, move on out." But we were just kind of bouncing around. We were just like a pinball in a pinball machine. We're just like, and somebody came up and they go, "Did you meet everybody? Did you meet everybody?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." He goes, "Okay, you need to leave." And I was like, "Okay, well, I can call an Uber. It'll be here whenever I want it to be here." Right.
So the way they could have fixed that would have been two things. One is just get a cast photo and get everyone to pre-sign them and say, "Hey, when you come in and meet everyone, we're going to give you this signed, photo with everyone's names on it, and you get one picture with the cast." And they could have got everyone in and out, but it was chaos in there of trying to talk to all the different people, and
probably 100 people. Wouldn't you say, Keith, Abby? Probably 100 people for the meet and greet.
They definitely oversold, I think, the VIP thing, and then there was all different lines for each person instead of just having one line to go through and meet them all. So it got really crazy at the end. But like you said, we did have some quality conversations with the ones who did stay, especially Steve Canale.
Yeah.
He is such a class act. He was such a nice person. And then later, afterwards, like several days later, he wrote us a note. He like found us on Instagram and wrote us the sweetest note and about our video project and how much he's been enjoying it, I guess, because we gave everybody stickers of our channel, and they must have looked us up because Kathy already knew about the project, and Steve complimented us, and I was just floored. I was so starstruck that he recognized our work, and that just meant the world to us.
Yeah.
That's what I need Mary to do for the podcast is get little business cards with all of our social media information so you can just hand them out at places because people are always asking. Even down in New Jersey when they were there for Chiller in April, meeting up with Priscilla Presley and stuff like that. We recruited some new listeners just by hanging around in the hotel lobby that night with Scotty Schwartz from A Christmas Story, who was handing out pizza to celebrities that night with a wagon. But that's
super random.
That's a little aside. The way you describe this reminds me of, I don't know, David, if you went to either the 30th reunion or the South Fork in that 2018 for the 40th reunion. Did you go to any of those?
They were a nightmare.
Oh,
yeah.
So David, how would you rate this one compared to the other ones you've gone to?
About
those
the
were
same.
a lot bigger.
It was just, yes, much bigger. And this was
bigger,
this
but also crazy.
Yeah, it was just, you can't go so big and you can't go so small. And you either have to be, have a tremendous amount of wealth to get them all there. And if you wanted to have a private party, you just do it yourself and just say, I'm going to bring 100 of my closest friends and this is what we're going to do, right? Because here we are, they're in their 70s, we're in our 50s. And, and to still have that drawing power is amazing, right? I mean, you can't recreate it. So I can't fault Oscars or I think the gentleman's name is Don. I mean, they did the best they could, right? I think with what happened because whenever I got there, I was even shocked. I think probably Keith and Abby were too, of just like, oh, there's a lot of people, and people came from France and people came from, Germany and, and obviously we know the passion for overseas, but man,
I remember 2018 being in South Florida, and I was doing Facebook Live for the Ultimate Dallas page at the time, and it's always exciting to see people meeting them for the first time and everything like that.
Right.
Just
Well, I think that's totally true. And we met 5 cast members we never had met before. So,
totally worth it.
I mean, obviously we were disappointed that Linda and Patrick were not there, but we were ecstatic to meet the ones we met, and they were all super nice and spent, several minutes talking to us, and they don't know us, and they took the time to talk to us, and they were great. And, hopefully we'll get to talk to them again in the future.
Yeah.
Linda and Patrick are going to go on tour together, doing the Back to Dallas show. All the dates haven't been announced yet, but they're going to be out there at some point. So keep your eyes on that and see what comes from that. And maybe we'll get them on the podcast to talk about it at some point. And Duffy's
cool.
Joe.
But yeah. I'm trying to lose weight. That's what I wanted to tell him is like, look, bro, I love sourdough, but whatever. But let's talk about the fact that I'm trying to, keep my waistline as thin as my hemline. I don't need to, see, I like bread.
Duffy's Joe?
Duffy's Joe.
Oh, look at you.
But I will say that
that's right.
One of the funniest things about meeting all of them, I'm, not bragging about, that stuff will put hair on your back faster. Let me tell you, if you took a swig of that, I'd put hair on my back right now because I could feel it through these. Man, that stuff. I've got bottles and bottles of that. And one night, I finally busted out one of the bottles I've got, and I started doing shots of it. And I think I blacked out and had a fever dream. And, it's like that stuff is, whew, man.
Is it just like the dream season or?
Right. I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, where am I?
You woke up in bed with Suzanne Plachette and it was like.
Yeah. it's kind of like those United Way videos that my wife and I did playing JR and
Those are
Sue Ellen.
amazing.
Yeah,
We
that was
love
fun.
those
we have to watch
videos. They were
those, yeah.
great.
Bravo for
Yes.
that. Yes, those are fun.
But when we were doing, the funny thing is when we were doing those United Way videos, my wife and I were chairs here locally, and we were asked to raise $2 million. And so we did 6 episodes of Dallas, and we did a dream part of it and all that stuff and everything.
Yeah.
But at one point, she's getting on to me about donating money, and we're standing in our kitchen and had a South Fork glass, and we had the bourbon. And what I found so odd is that I was drinking bourbon, trying to raise money to help people that have issues with bourbon.
Oops.
Oh,
I was like, well, this is typical Dallas, right? It's like it's like, I'm trying to help you, Sue Ellen. I'm gonna put you in an insane asylum.
Character.
The irony of it all,
character.
right?
Oh, that was one of the questions they asked Linda Gray. What was in those? What was she drinking? And she said water, because her character was supposed to be drinking always vodka. She said she started out with martinis and it had olives in it, and then it just ended up tasting like olive juice. So she said no more martinis for Sue Ellen, just vodka, which is actually just water.
in 2011, when I was an extra in the barbecues episode for the first season of the new series, it was watered down soda.
Okay, so it'd be brown.
Yeah, so it would
that
be
makes
brown.
sense. Sure.
And if you took a sip, they knew every glass in that entire barbecue, and they came over and they filled you back up to the exact spot it was before, in between takes.
Sure, gotta have that continuity.
And
it's fun
we
to
were
look
on
for those
set for-
continuity errors, though, isn't it? In the old ones.
Yes, like when Bobby got run over that morning, he put on brown boots up in Pam's bedroom, and then when he got run over, he was wearing black shoes.
Oh, we haven't seen that one. Okay, time to pay closer attention to that one.
I did ask the question during this. One thing they did, which I thought was cool too, is that they put pieces of paper on your table, and it said, who do you have a question for? What is your question? And then they asked which I thought was pretty cool too. And we got to keep up with those guys, because I just still, like I said, Oscars and the team, they did as good as they could do, right? But on the backside, it said, what other celebrities or cast reunions would you like to see? So, hopefully it'll happen again. But I asked the question. I said to Steve Canale, I said, who did you not sleep with on the show? Well, I'd already had like 3 beers, and I thought, my handwriting was horrible anyway, right? And I just laughed and laughed. And so the guy came around, and he's like, got any questions? I was like, yeah. And I just handed it to him, just like, no big deal.
They asked that
then
question.
I'm sitting there, and they're like,
they did.
Yeah. And he said, I got a question. He goes, from David. And then Sandy, she says, is David? And I stood up like I was, 3 sheets of the wind. I'm like, right here. And then he's like, who did you not know? I was like, oh my God, they really actually went through with that stupid question. Yeah. But it was funny. I mean, it did get a little bit of a riot, laugh out of everybody. And that it was pretty comical, but
I think Steve had a kick out of it. He was giggling about it. That was funny. That was funny. His reply was, Miss Ellie.
Yeah.
Charlie? No.
And our question also got asked, which we were so lucky because we didn't think they were going to ask. The question was about filming in Dallas because we wanted to know what they thought about it. And turned out they loved filming in Dallas, even though they were there in the summer during the hottest month.
Which is why when the new series came back and they asked Linda, Patrick, and Larry, when you want to film, they said, in the fall.
Yeah.
Because there were scenes where they were in the South Fork driveway and they yell action and it's 120 degrees and the women's heels are sinking into the asphalt, which is melting and stuff like that. But and I know it's always a challenge because I challenge myself whenever they come on to dig into obscure things and just try to keep it. I got to keep it fresh because it's. How many times can you ask me the same thing over 45 years?
Yeah.
I have a question, Josh. Okay, so I heard that Larry Hagman's ashes were spread at South Fork. Do you think that's true? Like, did that really happen?
I've heard both stories, yes and no, and I have still not gotten confirmation either way.
I mean, I looked it up on Find a Grave, and that it actually, So it must be true, right? No, but I
Maybe
honestly,
maybe
I think
there's
I'm guessing that it
part.
probably did. Yeah, part of it at least.
Right.
Mhm. I
Right.
think they probably did.
How were the others that you met? Did you talk to Michael Priest at all?
Michael was gone by the time we got to the
Okay.
room, but we got to meet everyone else except Michael, Linda, and Patrick. But it was great. I mean, Kathy was very personable. We had a great conversation with her, and with Shuri was great, and with Audrey and with Steve and
Joan.
Charlene.
And Joan Van Ark. She was fun.
Oh,
I
yeah,
told
Joan,
her,
yeah.
I introduced myself. I said, hey, my name's Abby. And then I was like, I said, I'm the nice Abby, not like the other one. And she goes, that bitch. So I enjoyed her. They were all just so gracious and so sweet to us.
And Joan turned 80 3 days after the.
She did. I feel bad. I could have told her happy birthday had I known that it was coming up.
And
wow.
Ted Shackelford's birthday is the 23rd, which we're recording the 22nd, so it's tomorrow.
I think that's the thing, like we were talking about earlier, is that you had your other characters in the show and how appreciative they are, right? I mean, I think that's the neat thing, is that they know how much we appreciate them. I think they know how much they are appreciated and what impact they had, right? And how Kathy had a tough chore against her, right? To the role she played in the show. I mean, that's, big shoes to fill, right? Kind of thing.
Yes.
And how she pulled it off and stuff like that. And the same thing with, Sherry, and, it's just, I think it's neat, right? Because we were joking about it, and I think he said it on their show this week too. It's like, hope we all make it to 50, right?
Yeah.
It's like, let's make it to 50. But at the same time, if that means we've got to bring in other characters, it's their time to shine too, right? And I think that's what Dallas encompasses, is that it's that taking nothing against the way from the main cast at all. But boy, if you could go back 20, 25 years, check egos at the door and say, let's line them all up and let's do it. Let's do it right. I think that's what's so neat about it, right? And then, like I said, probably the most entertaining I had was obviously with Charlene, because she's just still bubbly as all get out. But whenever I did meet Kathy, I'm standing there with my wife. And
Charlene, obviously, she has had her upbringing was not the best, and she's really taken a positive spin on life, and just her bubbly personality and everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
She's my same height. She's 4'11", by the way, the exact same height as me. So I said, hey, it's my long lost twin. She got a kick out of that.
Tall in stature.
Tall in stature, yeah.
Yes.
But whenever we met Kathy, I introduced myself, introduced my wife, and said, hey, I've got the Cattleman's Club. She's like, we had that moment and everything. And then I said to her, I was like, I went total fanboy. I've met a lot of celebrities and musicians and things like that. And I went total fanboy. I said, oh my God, I had a crush on you. And then I looked at my wife and I was like, well, I've got the lift code, so you've got to go back with me. Oh my gosh, I just can't believe it was so funny and awkward. But it's neat, right?
You're sleeping on the couch. No.
Yes, exactly. Right.
She is a beautiful lady. She
was genuine. I think that's the thing, is that they were all so genuine, and you could tell. We didn't get to meet Patrick and Linda, but you could also tell from them just being up on the stage that they genuinely love the passion that we all have for the show.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Patrick calls it the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, Kathy was going to join us tonight, which is why we moved this recording, but she is, believe it or not, she's with her son at his place in Colorado doing a cattle drive.
Oh, fun.
Oh my
Talk
goodness.
about art imitating life.
Oh,
so
wow,
they stayed on
awesome.
for a cattle drive. So I might be recording with her and Cherie and her friend Alan Catton next week, just to.
Oh, you'll have to tell them that we said hi.
Tell them we said hi, and that if I made it awkward, I apologize. But dadgummit.
Dadgummit.
I am surprised that Charlene didn't say, for her 3 words to describe Lucy, the poison dwarf, which is always thrown out
She
there.
said Rhodes Scholar
Yeah.
with an
Rhodes
accent.
Scholar, yes.
And then the mic went out and it sounded like they were bleeping her. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
It timed perfectly. Where yeah, that was so funny. She said she's a manipulative sex bot.
Okay, 3 words to describe the event from each of you, and 3 words to describe the series Dallas.
Oh, okay.
See how I pull these out?
I would say fun, surreal, and it's a lot of words. Can't wait to do it again.
That's way more than one. I mean, I totally agree. I was going to say fun. Surreal is a great one. And then I would say starstruck, because that's how I felt the entire night.
You know, mine would be just like Keith. I'm going to use more than one word. Being in the moment, right? I didn't film it. I just sat there and so maybe it's that starstruck or just you know, kind of listening to them and reflective. There's one word, right? Reflective, because I thought a lot about, you know, the series, watching it, my childhood, you know, funny moments, things like that. And then, fun, obviously. I mean, you know, all 3 of us have talked about the fact that, you know, Patrick and Linda were gone, but still made the best of it, right? You know, the best we could and everything else. But I think reflective is a really good way to put it, because it was just that special of a moment, right?
Yeah, and a couple things that what you said, David. I mean, we really struggled with whether we were going to record very much or not, because we were like you, like if you're recording, you miss that opportunity to really let it soak in. But then when we got the opportunity to be in the front and we weren't going to distract others by filming, and there were a lot of people that couldn't come, we're like, well, this is a good opportunity to be able to capture the moment. So, you know, there's a good quality video out there, because it'll be 5 more years for we do this again. And there's something, because if you look at the old ones, there's not a lot of good recordings out there. So there's not a lot of memories that you can go back and look at. And I'd say one of the things, I mean, you know, we've had a few complaints about the venue, but Dan Gore did a really good job. I mean, I don't think if Dan Gore would have taken the initiative to get the cast together, I don't know if the 45th would have happened. So we got to give Dan for that. And overall, it was a fun experience. It was a great experience. I mean, I'm glad he did it. And so I don't want it to come off like we're complaining. There were a few things we were disappointed that they could fix. But overall, I mean, I'd say it was a great night.
It was really fun. We were so glad that we went.
It felt like, I mean, just like what Keith said, Dan did a phenomenal job, but you can't handle the fact that it kind of felt like a general admission, you know, show for Van Halen in 1984. You know, it's like mass pandemonium. I mean, it was just, that just shows the power of the show, right? You know, you just can't, it's hard to quantify, hard to describe, I guess is the best way to say it, right? You know, how it went down and all that stuff, but I tell you what, that backdrop of that set made the night, because you know we walked by there for 2 days looking at where the space is going to be. Is like, this is not going to go well, because it's like, I mean, there were a couple of events before theirs, and
it's right on the street, you guys. Yeah, I can't explain how, like, you cannot tell from the video, but Josh, it was like their backs were right on the street. A couple of times you could hear people talking and cars honking and people driving by, and at one point a drone flew over and somebody was like droning from above. I promise that was not us. There was a lot of distractions. So the set really helped provide a backdrop and keep all of that, because otherwise you would have seen people on the street and cars driving by.
And that's credit to James Yarnell who did it. We'll post some pictures up on our job. We'll post pictures up on the page for people to see what that looked like. I know you were talking about not a lot of video from the previous ones. I have tons of video. I don't know why I didn't do anything with it from the 30th anniversary.
Oh no.
And I have all of the stuff that I did for Ultimate Dallas on the 40th one. So that's up on, I'll post links to that somewhere so people can check that out. And
if people want to watch this year's, we have a video on YouTube. You just go to our 80s Life Dallas 45th anniversary. It'll come right up. And then we had a separate show that we did where we just did like a recap about it and stuff like that.
Yeah, the video you guys shot, I will say, was phenomenal, right? Because I went back and watched it 2 or 3 times now, at least 2.5 or so. But because there's so much that I missed, and I think that's the thing, right? Is that as we're getting older, right? It's like being in the moment, and that's what I was getting at. Was that yeah? Is that being in the moment, right? And the fact that I just soaked it all in. I asked the stupid question, which was silly, but then you guys documented it, and I appreciate what you guys do, and I appreciate what you do, Josh, and all the other fans, and how we're trying to help keep it alive and things like that. And it kind of was.
Yeah, we're all coming from a different angle, trying to keep it alive.
Yeah, it was a little bit of like a once in a lifetime thing, right?
Yeah.
Because if something had happened and Jenny was, my wife was not able to attend because of work or something weird had happened or whatever, I would have said, I'll see you Wednesday night. It's like, I'm not missing it, right? I'm not, right. I'm not gonna miss it, because you just never know what's going to happen, right? So.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I like what you said about passing it on. Like, I do feel a little bit like we're passing the torch of these shows, not just Dallas, but like, that's what Keith and I strive to do. Is like, the 80s were clearly the best ever. We're totally biased, but we think the 80s were the best. The TV shows, the movies, all of it, the pop culture, the music. My gosh.
They actually had theme songs on TV shows, not like today.
The theme song for Dallas is like the anthem of the 80s. So like, our whole goal of what we do with the channel is just to pass on these awesome things to the next generation so that they can appreciate how great it was. Because we hear from a lot of young people like that they didn't grow up in the 80s and they didn't grow up watching Dallas, and they feel like they missed out. And we want to tell them, like, it's okay. Like, you can find it now and you can discover it now, and it's still great.
No, the 80s was not like Stranger Things. There were no Demogorgons coming out from the underworld. But they have a theme song, though. They do have a theme song to that show.
And they have great music in that show. The music, the soundtrack is on point.
Well, yes. And that's the one thing that Kathy and I talked about for a little bit was she was just, commenting on the collection, right? And it's ridiculous. Okay, Keith, I got a little bone to pick with you. You're like, it's a little over the top, but you are jealous. I know you're jealous.
I said I was jealous.
And David, we want to have you back to talk more about the collection when Mary and Sarah and everyone can be here.
Yeah, let's
and we
do
obviously
that
want to have
sure.
Abby. We obviously want to have Abby and Keith back when Mary and Sarah are available, so we can have more of a talk about locations and stuff like that and everything. And
that's what we talked about with what I talked about with Kathy real quick, is I just said, I can't remember how we got to that part of the conversation exactly. Probably after I professed my love to her as a child, but was whenever I said, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. Right. And this is an interesting part, I think, of this podcast, or where I'm at and all this other type of stuff, is that I said, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I said, because my 20-year-old daughter, she comes over and looks at it, and I say, yeah, that's your inheritance. But what is she going to do with it when she's, whenever I'm dead and gone? And so my wife,
she's going to do what Rex Mon's children did and sell the ranch.
Right. Well, and that's what, Jenny and I talked about that. I said, hey, been a lifetime of collecting. And so I started to think about and kicking around the idea of donating it to the ranch. Right. I was like, okay, you go into the gift shop, you see all this, you see that and everything. And we went down there for my 50th and spend the night. And they said, well, let's show you some memorabilia. And I was like, okay, and I was like, okay, I'll show you. You show me yours, I'll show you mine, And so I was really, really close to reaching out to them, to saying, hey, I'm going to give you all this stuff. Just put up a plaque and let the world appreciate it. Because every time we go to South Fork, there's always people there from another country, or they're always visiting me. People are always going through there. And I think that's, sharing the love that you have for the show. Right. Well, then we all know everything is just gone south down there in South Fork. I don't know how else to say it. Right. It's
pun intended.
It's a weird spot.
But I have noticed an uptick in their social media. They're not destroying the part of the ranch. They have so much land there. I looked at the acreage and comparison. They could put the Magic Kingdom and Disney's Hollywood Studios on that property. That's how big that property is.
Oh, see, okay. Yeah. Well, and I
So-
still have one of those.
If they want to build in
those-
the hinterlands and parts of it, fine. Just leave the part that we
Okay.
know. That's
Yeah.
all we
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And put some attention into it and love and upkeep and I still have 2 of the original deeds where I own a piece of South Fork, so I can
have one
argue
too.
with them that they can't sell it. They can't
That's
sell
awesome.
it.
I have one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
So you got a claim on it.
Oh
So
yeah.
There you
that's the interesting thing, and that's what I love about, especially what you guys do. And I do have. I went on what is that, T Public, I think, and I've got the shirt. Says
Mhm.
the Ewing Barbecue. I am Tapaka. That's the what you guys do, what Keith and Abby are doing, what the other big fan sites do is trying to keep it alive because what we're doing,
we all take a
it doesn't
different
go
approach
unappreciated.
too.
I don't think.
So
Right.
we all have our
Right.
own
That's
niche and
what's
we
fun.
cover
We
different
all
things.
have our own.
Like
Yeah.
like when we were doing the podcast and we were doing episodes, and I said I'm going to start using my ties to the cast and get some of them to come on. And then I said with Omri Katz, we were talking about his work in the cannabis industry because he is in the cannabis industry now. And I said, Omri, I'm going to do a spin-off of the Ewing Barbecue and call it After the Barbecue. And I'm going to have cast members on to talk about current projects and things of interest to them. So we did an hour-long podcast on the cannabis industry together. Cherie Wilson came on, and this is where an interesting idea came up. She works with the Yellow Rose Gala Foundation down in Dallas and does the MS fundraisers.
Mhm.
And we did a half-hour podcast on that. And I'm trying to get Morgan Brittany to come on with Gary Sinise and talk about the Wounded War Veterans Fund that he does. Just doing different things with different cast members that have nothing to do with Dallas so people can get educated about important issues. But with Cherie, you were talking about the organization for the event, and I threw out the idea, and maybe it will come to fruition at some point, a Yellow Rose Gala Foundation fundraiser cast reunion where all the money goes to MS research, and there's a limited number of tickets.
Yeah.
You could have Audrey Landers doing singing. You could have Deb Trinelli. All these cast members would come. People could pose for pictures with Mary Crosby holding the gun, stuff like that. Different auction items. A night at the ranch where Cherie will join you for dinner or something like that.
Yeah.
That would be
Different-
awesome. We would totally do that.
But it would be more controlled, and the Yellow Rose Gala Foundation would run it, and
People
all the
who
money
do
would go
events.
to MS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That would be the best.
So
yeah.
that's the idea that I threw out there, and she loves the idea. So let's see where that goes.
All right. Awesome.
So any final thoughts? Because we've been going for quite a while. Wow.
Well, I think
any
you
final
asked
thoughts?
I'm going to put Keith and Abby on the spot. You asked the three words to describe Dallas, right? We didn't get to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Should we end with that?
Let's end with that.
Okay.
All right.
You go first.
Okay. Well, my first word is hometown because it's my hometown. So that's a no-brainer. Like when I watch the show, I love that it's in my hometown. It has a lot of memories for me. Second one, I'd say probably intrigue because that's just, I don't know. It has lots of intrigue. Okay, Keith, do you have any words?
Let's say cliffhanger.
Cliffhanger, yes.
Love the cliffhangers. I'd say I love the fighting. So,
Fighting.
I mean, it's a guy's soap
Soap
opera.
opera.
It really is.
It is.
And I just say, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, it's probably not, it's a lot of words.
What?
Just
You
say,
only have to say one.
awesome.
Awesome.
I gave you 3 words, but
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, those are good. Good job.
what about David?
I'd say captivating, right? Inspiring, right? I think if you want a description of that, I think every character we connected in some form or fashion, right? And there was inspiration within those characters, and then just fun, nostalgic.
Yes.
It just means so much to so many and so much to me that it's just it's awesome. Best way to put it. You can't. You can't recreate it. They tried to do what they could do in 2012. They did a good job. They did a good job in handling Larry's passing and things like that. But boy,
that was a brilliant episode.
It was. What I love. What I really loved.
The masterpiece.
Yeah. What I really truly loved about all of it was the next week's episode, the opening theme with the slow music and how he was standing at the gate. I mean, I literally just got chills whenever I was talking about it, because I'll go back and watch that clip every once in a while, where it's that the melodramatic music and then him standing at the gate and walking into the sunset,
disintegrating, it's just dissolving into.
Yeah, it was just over the top, and that was just. They've always done good by the show. The creators, the directors, the cast, the fans, everybody has just done good by the show.
And I was down at South Fork. I had gone down to be interviewed by German television, and Audrey Landers was supposed to come down, but she didn't make it. And I stuck around because they were filming the funeral the next day. And I almost made it over to the set, but I went to South Fork, and I just missed Joan Van Ark because I did an interview with her not too long after. She was at South Fork for a fitting the same day for her episode, and Linda and Brenda came back after filming the scenes. So I had literally saw Linda in the parking lot after she filmed her monologue, her over JR's grave, and she was still very emotional, and saw Brenda, and we took her dog for a walk. But it was just that was how close I was to JR's funeral.
It just gives me chills. It just gives me chills, right? Because I think it was a part of our lives that kind of came to an end, right? It's kind of like what Keith and Abby and I were talking about, is that we were talking about my love for Van Halen, and the fact that Eddie Van Halen's dead.
Oh, God,
I still can't believe that he's not here, and I still can't believe that Larry's not here, right? It's like the fact that you're like, well, he wasn't very active. You're like, yeah, but he was still here, and you knew there was hope and a glimmer of hope, or he'd pop up in a magazine or ET Tonight or something like that, right? And I think that's what was so cool about the reunion, was that we just seized the moment, right? Because you just never know, right? And I think that's what's so special about what we all try to do, is to keep that moment alive. I think is the best way to say it, right? Yep. And I'd love to, shame on me for not digging into your podcast more and everything else, but it would be very cool to, see if you could get, Josh Henderson on, or, Jordana Brewster or Julie Gonzalo, or, because, Keith and Abby, they don't know yet, but the reboot series, I really do like it. I mean, I love it.
I have all the interviews I did with them for Ultimate Dallas on the press tour back then.
Okay.
That we're gonna post up.
Sweet. Yeah.
Well, this has been a very great. Finally, getting some of our other compatriots on here and talking, and just getting the lay of the land and what transpired at the event, and we'll look forward to having you guys back, each having your own episode, so you can go more into your stuff and talk about maybe some of the most obscure memorabilia you have, or the most obscure location place you have located, and stuff like that. I know Mary and Sarah and Melanie will enjoy picking your brains and talking to you guys and stuff. But that's basically it for I'm going to call this part 1 of the 45th anniversary recap on the Ewing Barbecue podcast. And part 2, we're going to have Kathy, Cherie, and their friend Alan Catton, who they've been on before, but we'll come back and talk about things. And I might even have been talking to Audrey Landers' son Daniel to come on about just the perspective of what it was like being the child or son of a cast member, and just growing up in that environment of the Dallas legend and aura and stuff like that. So those will be in future podcasts as we move forward. And you can check us out on our social media sites, and we'll be back soon with the next episode of the Ewing Barbecue Podcast. Any final goodbyes?
No, just thank you so much for having us, Josh. We enjoyed it. And for those of you guys who are looking for our Dallas videos, we have a whole playlist on our YouTube. It's Our 80s Life. You can find us there.
And we'll throw up links there. And Cattleman's Club.
Yeah, I just want to say, thank you to you guys and Our 80s Life and doing what we do to keep this. So I am a servant to you all, that if you said, hey, let's go deeper and talk about this or talk about that or memorabilia or what got away or whatever, I think that's we got to do what we got to do to keep it alive, because world's a crazy place, but it was a lot crazier on Parker Road. So
we need stuff from simpler times. And I think that maybe when we eventually do get down, we could do maybe a video tour with you guys of some of the locations. That might be
that would be awesome.
That'd be fun.
I will rent the minivan and we'll slide the door open and they can run out and do it. But I think that'd be fun, right? As we do that.
You gotta get the bread truck like Larry had, the converted bread truck.
I think you're onto something, Josh. I think it's like a trip. We do this. There's an element of getting those of us that are extremely passionate in our own different ways and sharing it, because Keith and Abby had me going deep into the well today trying to find Cliff's apartment at work, and I was just like, oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life here, But
we can go down those rabbit holes pretty darn quick.
Yeah, a wife said, once in a lifetime sleeping in South Florida. I'm like, hold your breath, we might see it again. So we'll see.
Might be back there.
We might be back.
You never know.
Good, we'll be there. Let's go.
Thank you guys so much.